Hola, 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 amigos. You might think I'm a little... My ass is dragging. I know, Murph, this last week, I think between the two of us, we probably put on how many miles in the air? I'd say I put on 5,000 miles at least.
Yeah, I went to San Francisco, and then we went into Alabama, and then back to Orlando. It was a full week.
Yeah.
And from Murph, just put a little Southern twang on here. Hola, y'all.
Hola, y'all. So, hey, guys, welcome back. This is going to be episode 96. It's going to be a fun one because this is going to be a follow-up to Kevin Holtry. We'll talk about that in just a second. But, hey, before we get started, it's Murph and Morgan again. Thanks for joining us. Just some quick housekeeping. Head on over to Apple and Spotify. Hit those 5 stars. Let us know what you think of the show. We really appreciate it. We really do. Some folks, we get it. This is not your flavor. This is not, your jam. That's okay. Just leave us some constructive feedback. We're open to it, and we make changes based upon that. Also, head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com, for all of the things that you can follow up on, like pictures and books, especially for Marines. If you're a Marine out there, lots of pictures. Makes it easy for you. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. Okay. Come on now. Follow us on that thing they call social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. But where you got to be over at Patreon, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. Murph, we have got this one. We're going to be recording this. Rambo First Blood was the winner of this month's poll, Sylvester Stallone month. So we will be talking about Rambo.
That was a little surprising, I got to tell you. Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you what. And I actually have we'll have some insights, but one of the insights I have is I've got a book called The Top 100 basically thrillers. It was put together by the International Thriller Writers. So it's like each chapter is devoted to a separate book. Mm-hmm. First Blood was one of the books they devoted a chapter to talking about it. There's a lot of things about the way the book was originally written versus what was in the movie. We'll get into that as well. So you'll only find it right here on Game of Crimes. We're doing some neat stuff with 911. Are they lying? Are they telling the truth? What's going on there? Just a bunch of good stuff. So head on over to patreon.com/Game of Crimes. Actually, Murph, we got quite a bit of feedback on our Waco. We reviewed the Waco, the Netflix series, and so we got a lot of good feedback on that.
Excellent. And that was an idea from one of our listeners. So see, we really do pay attention to what you
I believe it was Lori Campbell. We blamed Lori Campbell, didn't we?
I believe so.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Well, and if that's not the name, that's your name now. Anyway, just a quick disclaimer. Hey, this is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. We take the story seriously, but
you know us, we're going to have some fun and not take ourselves serious at all.
And one of the ways we don't take ourselves seriously is you got to head on over to Game of Crimes Fans, hosted by our favorite mafia queen, Sandy Salvato. Just answer a couple questions. If you are deemed worthy, just even slightly worthy, above just slightly worthy of entry, or even below, you're going to be let into the inner sanctum. I mean, we're approaching, I think, 900 folks in the group now, maybe more by the time this comes out. So, hey, guys, head on over. A lot of good stuff happens behind there, but just do it. Just come on over and get inside with us.
That is a very fun group of people. I mean, even if you don't like the podcast, there's some funny people there in the fan club. So give us a shot over there.
Yes. And speaking of giving a shot, I'm going to give you a shot, Murph. I'm going to ask you, do you know what time it is?
I'm about to run out of coffee here. Is it coffee time? No, I know what time it is. It's time for
Small Town Police Blotter. Blah, 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 yay. Okay, it's going to be a big one here today. This is a good one. All right. In New Jersey. A New Jersey man riding a motorcycle. He had a license plate on there. I'll tell you what it said in a minute. He led Florida cops on a high-speed chase that ended with the suspect crashing his ride. Police say Caleb Concepcion, 26, was spotted Sunday evening operating a motorcycle that had the fake New Jersey tag. When a Clearwater Police Department officer approached Concepcion on foot at a red light, the Garden State resident looked over at me and restarted the bike, and boom, he took off, ignored the orders of stop police, which you're not going to catch a guy on a motorcycle when you're on foot. So, but moments after fleeing, Concepcion was involved in a motorcycle crash. So karma intervened. Yeah. It was a citizen pit maneuver, apparently. He was transported to the hospital. He was advised of his rights. He worked in car sales. He chose to remain silent. But the funny part was, guess what the tag was? A fake but personalized tag. It was a tag called Bend Over.
Oh, what an idiot.
And the best thing, he is a fugitive on a parole violation out of New Jersey, so he's going to be headed back home. Yeah,
not only an idiot, but a moron on top of that. And you did that in Florida.
Florida.
We'd take your butts out down here.
Hey, hold that thought, because that's going to come into play into our next story.
Uh-oh.
This is Alaska. I decided to go north for a couple stories.
Right.
An Alaska woman. Well, I'm going to hold on to that. She set a record. Fairbanks police, by the way, Fairbanks population 32,515. Salute. Everybody's heard of Fairbanks, but didn't know it was that small. Anchorage is the one that gets all the attention. Mm-hmm. They were dispatched last month to a novelty store after a clerk called 911. Murph, that's 911, not 911, to report that a couple sought to purchase merchandise with a counterfeit $100 bill. Before cops could get to the Castle Megastore in Fairbanks, the suspect, Chelsea Sperry, left the business with a large wad of cash provided by her boyfriend, who waited for police to arrive. Shortly after Sperry drove away from the business, she was pulled over by police who had been given her description. When a check revealed that Sperry was driving with a suspended license, she was arrested and transported to the Fairbanks Correctional Center. Now, Murph, when you go to jail, they normally, check you out, right?
Search you,
yeah.
Yep.
At the jail, a corrections officer observed Sperry making furtive movements towards her vagina. According to a criminal complaint, she was then put through a body scan, which revealed she had items concealed in her vagina or anus. You better get a pencil out and start here. No. To start making a list. A female correction officer subsequently removed a wad of cash and drugs from inside Sperry. The haul included 6 $100 bills, 3 $50 bills, 7 $20 bills, all of which were counterfeit. The 890 in funny money, however, was supplemented by a genuine $10 bill that was discovered in Sperry's anus. Sperry's vagina, investigators noted, also held 2 baggies of methamphetamine, a baggie containing 7 morphine sulfate pills, 2 baggies containing a brown tarry substance that tested positive for heroin. They also recovered a clear plastic baggie containing 40 smaller baggies that were similar in size to the one containing the meth and heroin. The smaller baggies, the complainant notes, are commonly used for the distribution of smaller amounts of heroin and methamphetamine. I'm running out of air.
Where the hell was the kitchen sink? Good Lord. And why didn't I know there was going to be meth involved in this?
Kids. I'm sorry, kids. Rule number 1, what do we say?
No, don't do meth.
Oh, my God. And all I can think of is Kevin Holtry's episode where he talked about the prison wallet. Well, in this prison wallet that is dude, I've seen stuff come out of people, this is the most I've ever heard.
You can't get that in 2 grocery store bags. Hey, I got a new term for that, too, after we heard about the prison wallet. One of our granddaughters calls it the front butt and the back butt.
Okay.
There you go. When she was very, very little.
Okay, now we're still staying in Alaska. Okay. Hey, Murph, politics aside, but politics, will drive certain behaviors, and sometimes people think that a certain party might take away their rights, Second Amendment rights. You start buying a lot of guns, right? So gun sales are up. I remember when ammo sales. So apparently it hit Anchorage, Alaska really hard. A 61-year-old man is facing a federal felony charge involved with the attempted stick-up of an Alaska bank. They allege that Alan Bronson Rice walked into a key bank branch and removed a hammer from a small backpack. He placed the tool on the counter and they asked what he's going to do with the hammer. After motioning that he would strike the teller with the hammer, Rice announced, "I need your money. Give me your hundreds and fifties. I'm going to hit you with this hammer. Hurry up." So they handed him $1,039. He exited the bank. He was arrested several blocks. Cop found him sitting on a bench. A search of Rice's backpack turned up a hammer and money with a tracking device. So they asked if he wanted to make a statement when he was in custody. The FBI came in and interviewed him. Yes, he said he wanted to be released so that he could leave the country to serve his God. Okay. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an argument that a judge is going to grant. Times are tough up there. Couldn't get your hands on a gun, got a hammer.
Well, we've had several instances where people got hammered. So,
well, I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to get hit by a hammer, but
no.
I don't think I'd rob a bank with one either.
Just thank God the prior convict wasn't holding on to a hammer. Oh, that would have been terrible. Okay, Murph.
But probably plenty of room for it.
Well, hey, let's talk about this one because last week probably the largest collection of comments I think we've gotten on an episode in a long time. And even the onion field blew south. The people were this was a tough episode. And
yes, it was.
Oh man, it still is for me today. But the great thing about it was Kevin's healing. He's doing better. Well, he's doing better because of our next guest. And that's pretty cool, Murph. I mean, this is like with you and when we talked to your partner, another Kevin, right?
Yeah, Kevin Stevens.
Yeah. So we had Kevin Holtry, Kevin Stevens. Now we got Brian Holland. So Brian was there that day with him. I mean, I think it's interesting when you listen to this episode play out to hear the interaction, between them. They still gave each other a lot of crap and a lot of grief. But that day, I mean, to think about, if you guys want to know how important training is, that day training kicked in.
Oh my gosh. And being in shape. I mean, these are two, Kevin and today's guest, Brian Holland, are two studs. These are big boys. They're 6'3", 6'4", 6'2", 245. And with their gear on, you're going to hear Brian talking about how heavy they were. And he's taking Kevin and carrying him back into the Bearcat. It's amazing. It's almost like superhuman strength. But here's the cool thing about today's story. It's not a typical cop story. Brian's story is one of, I don't want to say dragging himself out of the gutter, but bringing, staying out of trouble while he was a young man, and then look at the good he's doing now. I mean, just so proud of these guys.
His backstory is amazing, and just the fact that he got to where he was. But I'll tell you what you got to do is you got to listen on his first day at college when he's walking into a classroom and he's got the jacket on that his mom gave him. That about had me falling. We're not going to tell you. You're just going to have to listen. But that will tell you the environment Brian grew up in and everything that he overcame. Plus, Brian got to meet somewhat of a celebrity, somebody who was as tall as he was, and I think we'll save that because he had an observation about the handshake. The handshake says it all.
Yep. And you may hear some odd noises in the background towards the end of the interview. Just go with it; it's funny.
Look, we allow everybody to come on, and you're going to wonder what the hell that is. Brian's going to let you know what the hell that is.
Oh yeah. Well, Mark, it's true honor to have these guys on here.
Oh yeah,
Brian. Kevin last week and then Brian this week. So thank you guys very much right here at the beginning.
And thank the people of Boise. You guys took care of these guys and took care of Kevin definitely. So, but we're not going to hear about this unless I ask you, Murph.
Yes.
Are you ready to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous, and prison wallet friendly game of all, the game of crimes?
Hey, everybody, just like last week, get in, sit down, shut up, and hold on. We got some fantastic guests coming on here. Bring on Brian.
Hey, Brian, we're going to get into some stuff, but you were just saying stuff. We guys, we're kind of jumping forward for a second, but by the way, welcome to Game of Crimes. But Brian, you were talking about, we were going to do this tomorrow on Saturday. We're recording this on a Friday, but you guys got a notice you're all attending another police officer funeral right across the border in Oregon. And that one sounded bad. What were the details on that?
Yeah, without, I guess, going too deep in the woods on it, the information we got is a pretty known gang member in Nyssa, Oregon, just over the border between Idaho and Oregon. Got into a reserve officer, I believe, got into a pursuit with this known gang member. Basically, the gang member pulled into a residence and ambushed the officer. Officer took a round, which kind of incapacitated him. And then from the information I received, that person then executed the officer. So as a show of, obviously that's what we do in this area. I think most cops do. Where funeral was tomorrow, about the time we were going to do the interview. So we're going to dress in our Class A's and go pay tribute to this officer, left some kids behind, and gave his life for the ultimate sacrifice.
Reserve Corporal Joseph Johnson, into watch April 15th, 2023. That's I just pulling up on the ODMP.
Yeah.
43 years old. He's survived by his wife and 2 children.
Yep.
Wow.
Pretty sad.
And that's You had mentioned that before we started the recording here, that is that's common practice amongst the law enforcement community and within the culture, that you show respect to other police officers killed in the line of duty, and you really show respect to their family. So we just want to say thank you for rescheduling with us, because that's more important than anything we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing that. It's what you're doing is important too. So,
well, that's. I guess we should tell them who we're talking to, huh?
Well, yeah, we kind of. So, Brian Holland. Okay, welcome. Now let's get. Hey, look. So this is a twofer. We had Kevin, as he talked about, not the half tree, but the whole tree. That's how he said his pronounced his last name.
He's full
Kevin
of
Holtry.
I thought Kevin Sultry was better.
That's what I call him, Kevin Sultry.
But hey, Sultry. Well, you got that Barry White kind of deep voice here going on. Hey, ladies.
That's all I got going for me.
Well, see that I tell you what, man. See, if we were on a raid team, you'd be the doorman, because with that voice, if you yelled "cops, hands up," I'd have shit my pants and put my hands up.
That's that's
it's the ladies, man. I'm getting a 1-900 number with your voice on it, man. I'm going to start. Yeah, I'm going to do a 1-900 number with you.
I retire in 20 months, so hook me up. I need something to do.
Okay, man. Oh, we got you. Okay, ladies, let us know let us know what you want to hear from Brian, the voice.
I'll be happy to.
Hey, it could be like, the people hire these superstars to create videos that they send in saying happy birthday or whatever.
Or you could be like TJ Webb. We had him on. He was from Connecticut. He got shot 6 times, but he got mistaken for a stripper. He showed up. These 6 Russian girls, stripper, and they start trying to undress him.
That's not a bad day at work.
That's when you go home with a smile on your face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dear Captain, no one was more surprised than me. All right. Well, hey, Brian. Well, let's get into this thing of ours, because what I was telling people, this is a twofer. We had Kevin on. So he's going to be on the episode right before this, episode 95. You're going to be episode 96. And one of the unique things, we kind of did this once before, Murph and his partner, Kevin Stevens, who we did an episode with, his partner was pretty badly wounded. Their informant was killed. And that was the first time Murph and him had talked about it. And so this is the first time, though, we've done separate episodes, but this is only the second time we've brought on the people actually involved in the shooting, in the event. So I just wanted people to understand the stage. So Brian was there that day. You're one of the guys that engaged. But before we get into that, as we always do, a thing of ours, Brian, how did you get involved in this thing of ours, this profession we called law enforcement? Were you like Brian? What Brian said was, what Kevin said was that he was, running around in his thong, almost naked on campus, and got stopped by the campus cops. Was that you too? Is that how you got involved in law enforcement, or do you have a story?
No, mine's not as extravagant as Kevin's. He's quite the adventurer. No, I never wanted to be a cop. I hate to say, I kind of grew up in a atmosphere where they just weren't part of our fabric, if that makes sense. And so I didn't. But when I think back, I really had some pretty good contacts with cops when I was being a little knucklehead in Southern California. Some people actually saw something in me, and I remember a couple good little pep talks from some officers, and then that kind of came to fruition, way later. So
we're at in SoCal,
Coachella Valley, Palm Springs area. Grew up in, we kind of bounced back when I was young, Long Beach. I have family in Long Beach. And then when I was a baby, we pushed back out to North Palm Springs. And so I kind of grew up in that desert area, Inland Empire. And there's a little neighborhood there called the North End, Gateway Street. And grew up there for the first little part of my life, and then moved over just before junior high to a more kind of a mixed neighborhood, a lot of Filipino, Mexican, Black. It's kind of diverse.
Yeah, I've been out to Palm Springs before, man. There's a lot of Hollywood legends and, stories about, all the stuff that went on out there in Palm Springs. There's some pretty neat places. Did you ever see anybody famous out there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's downtown. You get a lot of that. Palm Canyon Drive. I think I remember I think I was told, I may be wrong, but my great grandmother was like the maid for either Liberace or Elvis or something like that up in the Cove. But
Elvis.
And then they used to hire us, a couple of us knuckleheads to park cars for like the big tennis tournaments and all that. And I used to steal change out of the expensive
Did you ever go for a drive in one of them cars that was a little bit longer than what it took you to get to the parking lot?
Yeah, that was kind of par for the course. They always had good change ashtrays, so you kind of make some side money doing that stuff.
Listen to you little
statute of limitations have run out now. He's good.
Yeah. Hey, it was what it was. Pocket change.
So what was the funnest car you got to park?
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember. There were some pretty old ones, but it was so long ago. I'm finding that all my football days are starting to catch up with me, so my memory gets jarred.
So you sound like a politician on Washington, Capitol Hill. Senator, I don't recall. I can't recall that. What I threw.
That's my court testimony.
So you said you had
recollection, Your Honor.
No recollection. So you said you had a couple run-ins. Did that involve handcuffs and maybe a juvenile record?
No, you know what? I always avoided juvie. Thank God, because in Southern California, well, I think in California in general, the California Youth Authority was a very harrowing thing to think about. And I'd had many family who went through the CYA, and that pretty much starts your gang career and the rest of your life. So I had a couple run-ins, entered a couple places I shouldn't have entered, took things I shouldn't have took. And I grew up in a neighborhood that had gang issues. So I was fortunate that sports was a big part of my life. I had some family members who were deep seated in the gang and, selling crack and things like that.
Which ones?
Which one was what? Family?
Which gangs?
Oh, Crip gang set in North Palm Springs, a Gateway Crip, and that was, we as a youngster, you're kind of set by how that neighborhood acts. Not that I was anything to talk about by any kind of gang standards, but you wore things that were acceptable. Otherwise my cousins would be kicking my ass for wearing some type of red or something. It kind of ran how you conducted your life in Southern California. And that's kind of the norm there, honestly. And it's just gotten worse. So, but soon as the football touched my hand, I had some opportunities.
Well, I want to call out something early on because we're going to talk about it later. It factors into a couple of the stories. But when you say Crips and Bloods, that's generally not open to anybody. You have to be a specific race to join. And you you're very light-skinned, right? So yeah,
my mother's white. My father's very black. Originally, my father's family comes from Texas, East Texas, from a slave plantation, Holland's Quarters, and at emancipation they turned the slave quarters over to my father's family. So I have that rich history.
Wow.
And then my mother's side is basically, I think, German, out of like the Ohio area. So color has always been a weird issue. As a half black, half white person, you kind of are lost when you're young. I grew up in a black neighborhood around a lot of my black relatives. So I had that culture. But you get, there's a lot of weirdness that happens in the black community where, light skin against dark skin. I got hell because I didn't need a Jerry curl. My hair curled up naturally. I was light skinned with light eyes, so I was the pretty boy. And so you get kind of, pushed around for that. But yet, a nice white girl wouldn't date me because I was black, so you kind of had this weird, middle ground that you were in.
You're kind of like what they called in purgatory. I mean, you're just like, you're just hanging out there. It's like, because the reason I asked that is from a gang standpoint, did that create issues for you to where were you not black enough to be in the gang, or were you too white? Or, I mean, were they trying to recruit you regardless?
No, the color thing never was an issue in regards to gang stuff. And like I said, I was an outsider. You know, I had older cousins that looked out for me and some of the guys in our generation where you dabbled, but we just weren't, that wasn't our thing. You know, sports was our thing. It's a funny phenomenon, that I had these group of cousins, older cousins who, I mean, were top crack sales and, you know, just gang members and whatnot, but they really created this shield around us, a group of us that allowed us to explore sports and the possibility of going beyond the valley. So,
Wow.
So color wasn't an issue. It was more of just the total culture, of, you know, where do you fit in, you know?
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. Brian, we came across a photograph, and I'm going to show it to you here. Oh, for our listeners, we actually can see each other on video, but we don't record video. We don't record the audio. And I just want to see if you could explain what this picture is here. Does that look familiar?
Yeah. Yes.
Who is that guy in the tie there?
Yeah, come on, man.
That's past President Barack Obama, and a former lieutenant of mine on the SWAT team, and me being caught making a pretty
that is a meme.
Face.
That should be a freaking meme right there. Like, I'm involved in what now?
Well,
you know,
I think
funny.
I heard a little bit of a story behind this picture.
It's funny. I even have one of my kids made a little meme. Like, I guess you can move the mouth on these apps, and made a whole song to that thing. Like, it's just it's become a family joke.
Let's hear the story behind this. Let's hear the story. So how did you end up in front of President Obama?
Well, and I know Kevin will embellish anything, but I was on the SWAT team. We were all, me, Kevin, all of us were on the SWAT team. He came down. He was this was his presidential bid. He was in Boise, and we did the dignitary protection for him. And so I was in that capacity where we inside the arena, keeping an eye, working with Secret Service, and they wanted to meet. You know, who wants to? You know, that you were assigned to go meet him. I had nothing against the guy. I didn't like his policies, but you know, he was going to be first black president, kind of cool. And so they come in and they go, "Hey, we want to take pictures." So it was me and, you know, Lieutenant to take pictures, and he shook my hand, and I was flabbergasted on it was the limpest, daintiest shake I've ever experienced, and it just disappointed me. And I don't think that picture coincides with that, but Kevin and everybody else will tell you that probably was right after I shook his hand, and I just gave the stankiest face that I could give.
Well, I told Kevin, I said, after he explained the picture to us, I told him, I said, that to me, it looks like you're looking at whoever's taking the picture going, "You motherfuckers, you just set me up."
It was, I was disappointed, I have to say. My man's handshake is not anything to be envied of. So that face may be an indication of that.
But you were about the same height as him, right? I mean, he's kind of tall though, too, right?
Yeah. I'm about 6'2". I think he was close to that. Yeah, he's a smooth cat, but that handshake just didn't do it for me. So
didn't do it for you?
Nah.
All I can see is Eddie Murphy going, "That's not how a brother does it. Come in," you know, Kevin Hart. You know,
it was just one of those experiences that it goes down as a lifetime experience. And then it just happened to get caught. An expression
the
got
perfect
caught,
timing on the photo.
Perfect timing. It was amazing.
You gotta love it, man.
That's going with the episode, brother.
Hey, you mentioned sports. What sports were you playing? I'm guessing football.
Yeah, football was my thing. It's funny. I didn't. I got to give credit to our community. Our community center was run by my uncle, and I never played any juvenile like football. It was all you played pickup basketball, and you didn't leave without a scratch or a black eye. And then
it's called. It wasn't pickup. It was called combat.
It's combat, and you can't complain, or you got your ass whooped even more. So I grew up that way in those kind of deals. Nothing organized. What I did get into, just kind of inadvertently, was BMX. I was a expert BMX racer, and was going to go pro. And then in ninth grade. Just before ninth grade, I got a football in my hand, decided to play football, and never looked back. And I worked that into a football scholarship, played here at Idaho State University. I was a linebacker. I wish I would have stayed with baseball. I was always told I was a better baseball player than football. So, who knows what would have happened, but I had a pretty good football career. So.
Hey guys, Brian, everybody, hold on to that thought. We're going to be right back. First, though, we want to welcome back one of our favorite sponsors, and we'll tell you why. Game of Crimes is brought to you by BetterHelp. Now, as Murph, as you and I talk, we both covered the country last week, right? We spend a lot of time in 1 week. We spend a lot of time with other people, but some on ourselves. So the question is, how do you balance the two? I mean, we both were coast to coast last week.
Right. And it's so easy to get caught up in what everybody else needs from you, and you kind of lose time for yourself. It causes burnout. You just give all your time to someone else, and you need to take that time to catch up a little bit, get your thoughts back together, and this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and as we've always said, this is about having extra tools, having those tools in your toolkit to find more balance so you can keep supporting others so you don't get left behind. Now, look, if anybody benefits from therapy, it's people who've been through traumatic experiences, but not even that. But look, just go back to our episode with Kevin Holtry. Can you imagine the support, Murph? We talk about this a lot, the need for all first responders to get this, but even people in regular life, we've learned from over time, you cannot bottle this stuff in. You got to get it out. You got to work with somebody who can help you.
Absolutely. And by no means are we saying you have to go through a traumatic experience. Sometimes life just gets you down. It just kind of wears you down. You feel like you got the world on your shoulders. The nice thing about BetterHelp, everything is done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and it's suited to your schedule so you can get on there when you have the time to do it, not around someone else's schedule. It's as easy as filling out a brief questionnaire. They'll match you with a licensed therapist. And you know what? If you're not real comfortable with the therapist you get, you can change at any time at no extra charge.
Well, I can't switch hosts, so I'm going to have to stick with you, Murph. So
lucky you.
Yeah, guys. But hey, guys, you need to find out more. So find more balance with BetterHelp. So visit betterhelp.com/GOC today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/GOC. All right, let's get back to Brian. Idaho State is in Moscow, right?
No, it's in Pocatello on the east side of the state.
Okay, what's the university?
Moscow has a U of I.
Oh, university. Okay, that's right. Then there's Boise, obviously in Boise. Okay, that's it. All right. So you go ahead.
I was going to say, you got a scholarship there?
Yeah. So I went to. I had a. This is kind of a funny part of my life. I didn't get the recruit. I had dreams to go to the Pac. At the time, it was the Pac-10. Everybody. I had cousins that went to University of Oregon and USC, and so that was my goal. Was make it big time. Well, I think I had one Division I offer out of high school, and it was the Naval Academy, and my mother was just absolutely ecstatic. Got all the stuff you got to get, I guess, like senator, signatures and, all kinds of stuff. And she damn near beat the hell out of me when I said, nah, I'm going to go to the junior college and try to get into the Pac-10. So she, after whooping me upside the head and kicking me out of the house, I chose my path and went to a junior college there in the desert. And then from there, got a scholarship, got a couple scholarships offers, and chose Idaho State.
Yeah. So you turned down the Naval Academy?
I did. They wanted me to play fullback. I didn't want to play fullback.
Who gives a shit? It's the Naval Academy.
You sound like my mother. She let me have it. I believe me. I caught hell for that. But I was a little. I was a little shit stick and thought I knew what I was going to do. And, I made it work, but it damn sure wasn't the Naval Academy. That's for sure.
Yeah. You know what? We all were back then. We thought we knew what was best for us. We didn't know Jack.
Yeah. She
now, was Idaho State University the Bengals?
Yes.
And you went there in 92, 93, that area?
Yeah. Played linebacker.
Yeah, I see something about an all-time roster, and it has your name listed on there. On the all-time roster, it says G-L. What is the all-time roster for G-L?
I don't know. I haven't looked at that.
It's got you on there. It's got it's got you on there for 92, 93. Yeah, I wonder if that's all the linebackers or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I've never looked at it. I started both years I was there, and led, and I was top 3 in tackles for. I mean, not tooting my horn too much, but I enjoyed playing linebacker. I very much enjoyed it, and made people pay for it. So that was my goal.
Yeah, baby.
That's going to come in helpful later, I think, in your career. So after you got out of college, what'd you want to do?
So that's another funny story. Again, police was never in the books for me. What I did take notice of is when I got into the junior college, I had some people kind of explore the probation and parole route with me. I wanted to be active in kids' lives. I wanted to do something with kids. I thought probation and parole was another avenue. I thought that would be the end of it for me. And so Idaho State didn't have anything. I thought about just going criminal justice, see where I land after that. And they didn't have a criminal justice. So I went into social work with a minor or an emphasis in criminal justice, and learned a lot more about probation and parole. And then coming up, all my uncles, cousins, father, you name it, they all had probation officers, and I just remember they kind of were a little more in depth, right? They kind of knew your grandmother, they'd come in the house. Some of them good ones would sit down, have coffee, and get the lowdown on what their offenders are doing, because they have to. They got to do all those home visits and whatnot. So I thought that to me was going to be the ultimate job. And so after I graduated, I took a social work job for a year, but Pocatello just was not. I had to get out of there. I just couldn't do it anymore. It's just wasn't doing it for me. So
why?
God bless those people. I couldn't do it.
What did not work for you?
It's just drab and cold, and I just remember. So obviously, I come from Palm Springs, the desert. In January it's 70 degrees. I don't own big jackets. I think I landed in Pocatello with a Raiders bomber jacket. No, that was right before. So my mother gave me a big Carhartt type jacket. Never had one before. Furry collar, canvas outside, just this thing was legit. So I was kind of pumped. I got there. It was -10 in Pocatello. I just came from 70 degrees. Didn't know how to conduct myself. Go to my first class, and I'm wearing this big jacket with an LA Kings hat, and I'm walking the class, nose hair's frozen, never experienced this stuff. And I've told this story a bunch of times. And I go into this class, and I have the lapel up because I'm freezing. And my mother never told me where she got this jacket. I'm looking around, and people are just looking at me like I am crazy, like the abominable snowman. So I got to try and find somebody to do this project. It was immediately, you got to find a partner to do this project with. And I'm looking around, and nobody even wants to look at me. And I'm like, man, something's going on. Something's weird. Well, I take the jacket off, and I'd never seen the backside of the lapel. It says Tracy, California Penitentiary. It was a penitentiary jacket. My mother got from her husband, who was doing 32 years in prison for murder. And that's his gift to me to go to Pocatello. And so I can only imagine that that's what they saw. And I'm like some prison transfer that's going to college or something, I don't know.
Well, school release.
Whoa. But back up for a second. This was your father's jacket?
Yeah. So my stepfather, my father left me when I was, I think I was 12 for the second time, and our relationship is null and void. But my mother rekindled with a high school sweetheart, and he was, in the business, in the narco business, and ended up, I don't know all the details, but ended up killing a man on a drug rip. The guy, if I'm not mistaken, tried to take out his partner. So he killed him. They buried the body, let it go. Somebody pillow talked. He gets done for murder. Ultimately ends up doing 32 years in prison, in California state prison. So, but
you had a lot of shit going against you growing up.
It was interesting. The weird thing about it, I'm a spiritual guy. God works in some crazy ways, but I could never visit him because I'm Black. So me and my sister could never go see him in prison because he had gained the status. He basically was the leader of what they call the white car, the white gang, so that's the other thing. He's an Irish guy, so pure Irish. And he's running the white prison gang in Tracy, California, and pretty prominent, but I couldn't visit him, could never go see him just because there was that color issue. But he would call and he would write letters. And so we never really knew him. And then about 8-9 years ago, he actually got out, got pardoned, or got paroled, excuse me. And we had a great relationship. That guy treated me more like a son, and man, I could ever imagine that my real father did. So he just passed away a couple weeks ago, and so we just had
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, a little funeral for him. So
wow. So this is a very different upbringing than I can't think of anybody else that we've had on the show.
Sherry Foster is about as close as we come to somebody who was challenged with that upbringing, Murph.
Yeah, but her mom didn't go to prison.
No.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
Dang, dude. So
it sounds like you had all the cards stacked against you, but you came out on top.
Yeah, I thank God. It was quite so. When I think you guys were kind of leading into what got me into police work. When I did juvenile probation in Canyon County here in just outside of Boise, I started to see that law enforcement kind of aspect come out. I remember my grandfather telling me that I always had some knack to be around. Like cops always found me somehow in a positive light. He tells a story about us being at the Colorado River, and they couldn't find me. I was lost. I must have been, I don't know, 4 years old or something like that. And when they finally found me, I was I was surrounded and hanging out with a bunch of California cops that were just hanging out at the river, and I was just shooting the shit with them, and they were just hanging on to me and thought I was the greatest kid in the world. And I mean, just little stuff, anecdotes like that just kind of now makes sense. But, I didn't know it in that interim. But yeah, I just started to develop relationships with police, got into state probation and parole. So now I'm carrying a gun, wearing a vest, and I just saw myself just being more tactical, more police-oriented, minded, and finally got, I had a good friend just tell me, I was doing a lot of gang work, had a good friend in the gang unit at Boise that said, you need to test with us. And so I was always worried about, my upbringing and how that might affect me getting on.
Well, how did it affect you getting on? What kind of questions? How did they, when they were talking about your background, obviously a lot of the stuff, your stepdad, your dad, those things had to come out. How did you deal with that?
Obviously I told him everything. It was it was a chance to take. And I always give credit to retired officer Roger Bird. He was doing my polygraph and background, I think. And I told him all the stuff. I mean, from car thefts to drive-by shootings, and just stuff that I saw, the things that happened to me. And I sat there at the end of that polygraph and went, there is absolutely no way I'm getting this job. And he went out.
So screwed.
Oh man, he went out for a smoke break, and he had me come outside, and I thought he was just going to break the bad news to me. And I remember his words. He said, "Brian, we would be honored to have you work at Boise Police." And he put it all in context of how I grew up and what I had done and become from, college graduate, the football stuff, the successful probation parole career. It was a blessing, but that was the first hurdle. The second one was the psych eval. And, I always tell this funny story, but I go to the psych eval and they have you do that 1,600 question,
Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory. I think it was called the MMPI.
Yes, and they ask you one question one way, they reverse it another way. I was seeing all the games.
Would you like to be a baker or an auto mechanic? Would you like to be a florist or a dog catcher?
Yeah, people. The way I look at it is, people from the hood just don't understand that kind of. I didn't understand any of that. I was like, they're trying to dupe me somehow. Anyway, I answered the questions, and the psychologist comes out and she pulls me back and says, Brian, based on your tests, I would have to diagnose you with PTSD. And I didn't know. I thought that was just a veteran, war thing. I was like, I ain't been in no war. I'm not a veteran. Where does that come from? And she's like, your childhood was just you have to be suffering from PTSD. And I said, well, I'm the last phase of this job. You can't do this to me, So anyway, she made me do all these extra tests to make sure I'm not some crazy guy. And it took a little bit, they always show you these picture of like some young girl holding an apple and some guy with a hood is walking by her, and she goes, what do you see? I go, she's about to get jacked for the apple. I mean, and she goes, no, you have to see the good in other. And I was like, it is what it is. You show me, that's what I'm going to think. So she was great though. She really quantified just some stuff. I mean, the stuff that I'd seen from, the police raided my father's house. I'm sitting in the bathtub as a kid, I had police running there doing narcotic searches and, kicking in doors and all that kind of stuff. And to see all that, I get where she was coming from. It was a lot to see and go through, but I felt like I formulated it into a good model to be a pretty rounded police officer. And 20 years later, this is 25 years later.
Well, not to say anything, nothing derogatory towards your family, but you grew up in a very rough environment, obviously. And the fact that you came out of it and have attained what you have. But I'll be honest with you, I was a little hesitant to say this. Given that picture, I saw it the same way you did. He's getting ready to steal that apple and smack her down the ground.
I'm about to jack that apple and eat it. Maybe that's the only positive thing. An apple a day keeps the police away.
Yeah, so what the hell's wrong with all of us then?
Exactly. Well, and
what was the moral of that story, though?
The other part of it is don't hold your apple out like that. Like, prevent the crime, don't put it out there and expect, I hate to say it, but people got to prove their goodness. We have to have faith, but you also got to be, reasonable, and people got to show and
skeptical.
Prove. Yeah.
Well, what good can come out of a guy standing in a hood with a young girl? I mean, explain to me under what circumstance, what scenario that is an okay thing to do.
She was hoping to get some sliver of...
That's why we're cops and not psychologists.
Yeah, exactly. She was hoping to get some sliver of... I'd take it as weakness from me, but I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So, well, I made it, though.
The other thing, though, too, is Yeah, by the time you were 18, you had seen more. I mean, talking about PTSD, but by 18, you had seen more traumatic things and more things that could have damaged your psyche than most adults have by age 50. And we were talking about some of this, Murph, about what the average adult sees versus what a cop sees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I appreciate what she was getting at. And it kind of brought in all my education up, at Idaho State on all the classes I took under the social work umbrella of, and it's weird. It leads into what we learned. And uniquely, I think it was only my class that might have went through it, maybe a couple classes of the emotional intelligence, which I use now for the mental health aspect is, if you don't see and you don't have enough emotional intelligence to see how you're affected by things or telltale signs of things that might be affecting you, you're at a disadvantage, so you have to build up that emotional intelligence about yourself. And ultimately it's just like putting on the air mask in the airplane. You put it on you first so you can help somebody else. You've got to see where your deficiencies are and what you need to work on in order to go out and help people in their worst crisis or emotional state on a daily basis. So
that's a good analogy about the air mask. That's very practical.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all been through it, and our law enforcement culture years ago taught us you had to be a tough guy. You just sucked it up and you compartmentalized whatever you saw, and you didn't talk about it with anybody else because that was a sign of weakness. But as you go along, and your brain actually starts developing, and you realize what bunch of crap that was to start with.
Absolutely.
When my partner got shot, we never went to counseling.
No, and our department
down the road, but as that.
I'm sorry. Our department does a good job of making that happen, but I've watched people just push away from that, even though it's a very good counselor, and it's free and it's discreet, but just that stigma, like you're talking about, especially coming up, even my era, but obviously well before that just was a no-no. You just don't show that. And you see a lot of police agencies that have those little caveats, I mean, all the way down to if you use a mic, you're showing some type of weakness on your radio. If you use the radio in certain situations, I do it to this day where I never call for, even if it's a code 3 situation, I tend not to use that because I think I'm some tough guy. I mean, we all have these, little restraints on us that could hurt us, but
too many guys walk around thinking they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and and they're not. It's that perception. But I want to ask you a question though. You loved Palm Springs. It was 70. You had culture shock, and obviously wearing a prison jacket into class didn't help you out getting started. But why did you stay? I mean, you graduated. Why did you not go back and do probation and parole in California? What was it about Idaho that made you want to stay there?
There was a couple of events that had happened that I remember were pretty prominent, and my mother was just absolutely worried about me coming back to California, and that was my goal. I was like, I'm getting out of here. The state's not for me. I hate the cold. I'm not a snow person by any means. That was one of their. I should have not picked Idaho State because one of their recruitment techniques was taking me skiing, and I had no ski gear. I had to dip into the lost and found bin to find a beanie and 2 mismatched gloves. And I tried to go down that hill one time, fell on my back, and 2 kids jumped over me with their, little ski stuff on. I said, get me the hell off this hill before I go home now. So that should have been a sign, but my mother told me, stay back, stay there, find something there. And it was wisdom on her part to just push her son away to start something new somewhere else and not get stuck. Palm Springs in that valley has a grip. It has a familial cursed grip a lot of times and can hold a lot of people there against their will or unbeknownst to them. And you just get kind of caught up in that whole thing. I knew later on being a cop in that area where I grew up would be almost impossible. So this was a new start. It was, it was unfamiliar. But my mother telling me, stay back. I had an ex-girlfriend who, ended up getting shot holding her baby in a drive-by. I had a partner of mine that we played football together, got shot in the head in a situation in Banning, California. He was getting ready to go to UCLA, or was taken. That was before I went to Idaho State. Just a couple of incidents where it was like, man, just losing people. Just that pull down. So I'm glad I did it. Took my mom's advice, applied for some jobs. I wanted more of a city, wanted to get out of Pocatello. And so I applied for some stuff in probation wise in Salt Lake and Boise Boise area. And I got my law enforcement start with probation and juvenile probation chief, Doug Brown, who is a mentor to me this day, saw something in me and mentored me for the 3.5 years I worked juvenile probation, and really kind of guided my career and kicked me off.
Your mom is a wise woman, and she was looking out for her son.
Yes, one of the wisest women. I'll tell you something about my mother. White as can be. Garnered the most respect from Black people that I've ever seen because she stayed true to who she was. I have great grandmothers, big mamas, that they call them, my grandmother, they left paragraphs in their eulogies when they died specifically about my mother, and about her integrity, about her never wavering to be who she was. She was a white woman that loved a Black man, that had 2 Black children, and raised them the best she could on her own, with all the narcotic, dope, drug violence you can muster up. And she, to this day, well, before she moved out of California, our house in that secondary neighborhood I talked about, I'd have drug addicted, crack addict cousins that would show up to my mom's house because they knew she was a beacon no matter what. And you would look and go, I'm getting ready to fight this person, pull a gun on them if I need to. And they simply wanted to see Michelle, my mother, as a beacon because she just had that about her. So she that's a testament to just the integrity that she held, never wavering, never trying to assimilate, never trying to overcompensate, for having Black children or being with a Black man or any stereotypical junk like that. She stayed who she was and garnered so much respect for it. So,
wow, somebody to look up to. Fantastic.
Dang, man. Well, and the other thing too is back when she got married, interracial relationships, California was probably a little bit more accepting of it, but that was still a tough thing to do back when you were a kid.
I got stories for days, but that's a whole nother thing because that was a controversy in and of itself. So my grandfather, my mother's father, was a big union guy. He was president of the telephone union in California. And so the story is when he found out that my mother was pregnant, nobody could speak her name. And God love him. He's a great man. This is just kind of an anecdotal story, but there was a hit put out on my father because he got my mother pregnant. And then once I was born, the hit was lifted because my grandfather saw, obviously there's a life here. Look at this life that was made. And he accepted my father, and they even though my father had all the issues that he had, my grandfather, really kind of transformed that. But that was the time we came up, it was a hidden relationship. there were parts of my family that would not and could not speak my mother's name based on having a relationship with a black man and having a child with him, and then being born. Some of that, a lot of that changed, and some people who were very hardened in regards to that, changed some of their views. So it's kind of a cool thing to, kind of study.
That's what I'm saying. In spite of all of those things, here you are. We're talking with you later. Cop. So let's get into the cop part. So your friend talked you into applying for Boise. He said you should do this. So you had 3 years on in juvenile probation. Is that right? When you applied? Yeah,
about a little over 3 years, and then I did 5 years with the state with probation and parole. And that's when those are the times I got into the gang work. So I started my gang career as a juvenile PO, working with gang members, and then I started a gang caseload at probation and parole. The first one specific to supervising gang members, and then so I was working close with a lot of those units, and then that's what kind of got me pulled into actual police work.
Well, once after the psychologist realized you weren't as crazy as you seemed, did you get the job offer?
I got the job offer, and immediately, because of just some of the people I'd worked with and knew, and a little reputation I had just in the probation parole work I did, Kevin being one of them. I worked with him on a couple cases. And as a probation parole officer, I think I feel good about this. There was a team that they were all involved with. Kevin was involved with, and some great guys were on and had gone through. And it's a team specific to the bars downtown. We have a pretty vibrant bar area downtown, and so because everybody comes there because there's nothing else going on. They created what's called a bar team. Back in the day, it used to be called the Hollywood team, because everybody on that team looked like, the picture of Adonis. I mean, you name it, the LAPD, the white T-shirt up, the LAPD blues, the hard badges, the haircuts, everybody's yoked up and can put hands on everybody. They were to me, that was the ultimate team, to kind of be involved. So when I was coming out of the academy, the captain gave me the nod and said, "You ready to go to the bar team?" I was like, shit. I was like, you might as well pick me to be, on some high speed specialty military team. I was like, hell yeah, I'm ready to do that. So
here we go.
So yeah, we went to that.
No, I'm a young officer, good looking dude. I don't want to be hanging around bars with all sorts of good looking women. No, put me in bunny land somewhere north where there's nothing going on. I want to work midnights all by myself.
That is the secondary piece of it. There are obviously very pretty women down there, and the uniform will make any ugly dude look very good. But
what did I say yesterday, Murph? One of my lessons to recruits and doing FDO stuff and training. I said, guys, remember, chicks dig guys, ugly guys in uniform too. I said, don't let it fool you.
Yeah, don't ever let that
you're not
hold
special,
you back,
man.
If Kevin Holtry can make the uniform work, then anybody can.
Well, we'll let Kevin know. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure Kevin's going to listen to this interview.
So, what year did you get on Boise? And remember, that's the lesson we learned. It's like we talked to the guys. So, like John Mattingly was involved in the Breonna Taylor shootout in Louisville, but there's only ways to pronounce things like Louisville. It's not Louisville, and it's not Boise. Yeah. It's Boise.
Yeah,
it's not Louisville either. So,
I've broken that rule many a times. Boise. I do use the Z a lot, but I got on in 2003.
All right, so this is about 13 years, I'm sorry, before the shooting happened, right? Because that happened in 2016.
Yes.
So, yeah, so for that 13 years, because we want to start working towards the event now. So for that 13 years, what kind of roles did you take on in the department? What kind of assignments did you have?
So I sold in pretty good on that bar team, and that became kind of my majority of my focus on patrol because it offered everything. Like you had, we'd go out and we'd handle calls, but you end up going on what's called a directed patrol. The downtown cruise is big, so we'd deal with downtown cruise issues. There were gang issues down there because of certain areas and the cruise aspect. And then you'd go out on a foot beat and deal with people in the bar area. So you got drunk people, fights. I got into a lot of capers down there. Was able to do and home in on a lot of good physical skills because people always wanted to kind of go that route, and so that was kind of my focus. And then I had a track though, and my track was there were two things I was going to do in my career, and that was going to be I was going to go to the SWAT team, and I was going to get on the gang unit. And so in my time in patrol, about 5 years, which that to me is the minimum. I wanted that to be the minimum. I think you get a rounded view doing patrol tactics and learning patrol tactics, hot calls, things like that for 5 years before you start thinking about other specialties. But the SWAT team, as early as I could get on, was 3 years. I wanted to get on that as soon as possible. And I'd done some prep work with probation and parole, worked with some other teams, allowed me to get in their stick, do some clearing, learn some techniques. So I was really trying to home that in. Big hot call taker when I was out on the street, because that was my goal, is to get on there and test for what we call SOU, Special Operations Unit, at Boise. And then subsequently, when I got put in my appropriate patrol time, I wanted to get into the gang unit, which was a detective position. And those both came to fruition. I thank God I was able to test for SOU. Got on in 2006, and put in almost 15 years before my body gave out on me. But that was my first thing, and then got in the gang unit in 2009.
What did you say gave out on you? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
My body. I'm 50 years old, and I got 2 fake knees and a fake hip. So,
as they say, you've been rode hard, put away wet, eh?
My wife would say that.
Oh, is it that voice that does it? Come here, honey.
Hey, you got to use everything you can at this age. You know that.
Got to use all your tools, man.
Exactly.
It's a gift. It's a gift, brother.
All right. So, but that was nirvana for you, right? Once you hit the gang unit, once you hit the SWAT unit. So what was a typical week for you? What kind of stuff? How often were you getting called out on SWAT, and what kind of stuff were you doing on the gang stuff?
It was funny. I've been through a couple regimes on the SWAT during my time on the SWAT team. We had some good periods where we were really getting called out, and had some a couple shootings we're involved with, and not that those are good, but obviously our tactics were great. Our camaraderie, our team, our support, and then we hit a rough patch with a certain administration that kind of just got very, I don't know, I guess the word is woke these days. What our SWAT pins look like and what they represent, or
when you say administration, are you talking about police administration, city administration, state government, federal? What do you mean by administration?
At that time, it was police administration. So it was kind of trickling down of the look of things and how SWAT looked, and even though we were effective and well trained, I mean, I'd put our team. Jeez, man, we were a very good team, and still are. But I remember the height of our, the guys we had on that team. I would put them against anybody in the Northwest. I mean, we had a great team. So, I think our call outs dwindled. I think we were in the 40s when I started. When dwindled down to like 25, 30 a year, very, very, at times we should have gotten called out. We didn't. So that got demoralizing. If you're I always put it this way, and Kevin can attest, I equate it to, and maybe this isn't the greatest analogy, but you're a meat eater, you're You're an action hound. You want to put your skills to test. If all you're doing is training and you're not putting that to work, you start to get antsy, you start to get, irritated, and the guys that take the most of it are your guys that you're training with, month in, month out. So that got, that dealing with those ups and downs was frustrating, but man, that's my life. I mean, it's tattooed on my body. That's my team forever. And then I'm doing gang work. And so I'm trying to drum up work, for the team, and was able to do that.
Real quick question on your SWAT team. Was that call outs for like crimes and situations, or was that more warrant related? Were you guys just the tip of the spear for warrants for narcotics or dope or other stuff?
In the beginning, most of it, it's warrant service, high risk warrant service, high risk calls, so call out procedures, and then things that might make it up, dignitary protection type stuff, and those things that would all make up, our call out situation. Things have changed in the time since right before I got off the team. Actually, now everything's, warrant service has come down to surrounding call out, and nobody goes in the building hardly these days. So it's changed a lot.
Kinder, gentler law enforcement.
It seems that way. And it's, but some of it I understand. There have been times when, you make a decision to go into a building and you go, what is this for? And why, we're trying to get 10 pounds of dope and I'm going to get smoke coming in the doorway. That's stuff you start thinking about as you get older and start putting your tactical mind. When I've started, I'm a breacher, mechanical, ballistic breacher. I mean, you give me a door, a wall, it's getting demolished. I mean, that was my thing, and it didn't matter. I don't care what the mission is. I'm getting you in this door, you get older and you start having, people kind of underneath you, and you're a pseudo leader, team leader. You start putting your mind on those things going, there's a smarter way to do some of these things. So I get some of it. But just like anything else in law enforcement, we tend to go way hard the other way. and there's no like tactical look at, easing up to those things.
Man, well, that kind of sets the stage for what we're talking about here too, because let's start leading into 2016 and the shooting with Kevin. What kind of unit were you? What kind of work were you doing at that time?
So I was a gang detective. I was working with ATF, doing some pretty good cases. I think at that time I was in the middle of an OCDF case, an organized crime, drug enforcement task force case, with ATF and DEA. And we were kind of in the middle or towards the end of, we had like a 30-person investigation we were doing into the Southside gang, or a couple Southside gangs that were distributing a bunch of narcotics and guns throughout the southern part of the state. And so I was deep in that, and on the SWAT team, lead breacher. And this day comes up where a known gang member that myself and my ATF partner had interviewed a little bit before this, real violent guy, on some gun charges and violent crime he did. And we saw at that time when we interviewed him that he just had this look, he just didn't give a shit about anything. And then lo and behold, it comes up where he goes on this violent crime spree, and everybody's looking for him.
How long after your interview did this piece of shit go on that crime spree? Because if I remember right, he killed 2 people during this spree.
He shot 3 people, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they were killed. One was paralyzed, and then she ended up killing herself based on her situation. But if I'd have to think back, I want to say it was within the year that we had interviewed him, and he had went back. This is, and I know Kevin probably touched on this. This is the kind of the corrections reform era where guys were only being looked at for the top, kind of their current charge, and their entire jacket wasn't being looked at. He was a product of that. He was in for, I think, grand theft by possession or something, and had gone back for that, and was released based on, it was a property crime, but his record was, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, trafficking, firearms, you name it, gang, documented gang member, violent gang member. And so all that stuff kind of.
Do you remember which gang?
Yeah, we have a gang in our area. It's prison driven, but has community ties, and it's mainly Boise, Garden City, a little bit of Meridian. That metro area of Boise is called Southside Clica. It's a what they call Sureño gang. Sureños come out of Southern California originally, kind of run by the Mexican mafia. And they are a derivative of that. But they kind of pick and recruit from the Boise metro area, and then represent in prison as a part of a what they call they used to call it the Mesa, the table, because the Southside Sureños are the biggest gang in our state, but they're broken up into a bunch of different cliques. And so inside prison, they kind of come together as a council to make decisions, who does a hit here, who's got the best, dope coming in, all that kind of stuff. So they were part of that council.
Yeah, that we were talking to, because I remember I was out in California with some cops and stuff doing stuff, but they had just passed, I think it was called Prop 234, but that's where they were letting all of the people out of prison.
Yep.
Just letting everybody go, not putting them in jail. I mean, we've got to save money. And this is the kind of stuff that happens. Murph, you had your hand raised. You got a problem.
I'm getting ready to go off here, because it blows my mind that the criminal justice system is not looking at their past record to make a determination whether they're safe to be out in the community. And I think Kevin had told us, if they had not let that guy out, he would have been in prison until 2026. Does that sound right?
I believe so. Yeah. He would have been
down. And Kevin wouldn't be in the boat he's in now. And we probably wouldn't be doing these interviews.
No. And
it's just that, that's dereliction of duty there.
It is when you really think, and again, I come from the Department of Corrections, the field services part. But I've done a lot of, I'm a gang expert in our area. I testify as a gang expert in both our district courts here and federal court. And you're right. The due process to the community, put us in the community as well as protecting the community, but to the community, that you would not use this person's background. And especially when I always look at, on the tactic side of things, time and distance, right? If I'm going to approach a house and there's gunshots, what's my time and distance before that's not an active situation? Same thing here. What's the time and distance of this person's actions as a violent person, also as a gang member? Are those continuing actions that we're going to still have to deal with? Or is there a period of time where there hasn't been anything? I as much as I've done gang work and put people in prison, federal prison, you name it, I have very close people to me who I've vetted that they have changed their life. And these are hardened, stone cold killers who I have vetted that they have changed their life, time and distance. They have utilized the time and created the distance to be a new person. So it can happen, but a reasonable person standard, which we're all, laden to, is in a situation like this, to save $1, it causes people to lose their livelihood.
Yeah, and their lives.
Yes. Yeah, and then we're seeing that. Obviously, I'll be at a funeral tomorrow for that. So.
Well, let's start getting into this. Let's talk about that day, because this piece of shit, it's kind of one of those things. You saw the red flags. You saw, the lights are blinking on this guy. Something's going to happen. You just don't know when. But then something happened. So let's talk about that day. What were you doing that day before things started happening, before the call came out?
Yeah, that was interesting. It was obviously Veterans Day in November, but it was a beautiful day. 70s, I think. And me and my wife, we both ride motorcycles, and we went out and met my ATF partner. Was off that day, and went up to his little area in Boise, kind of a satellite downtown area called Hyde Park. Beautiful area. Rode up there and had some food, and literally was just about to put a nice IPA up to my lips, and got the call out of and again.
Well, hold on a second. I got to dispute something. There is no such thing as a nice IPA. I mean, you drink IPA. I can't believe you drink IPA. Come on.
So Kevin always gives me hell. He always goes, "Where's my black friend?" He always asks that question because I drink IPAs.
Oh my God!
He said
I can't believe this interview's over.
Ever since I camped for the first time, bought a cabin in the woods, and decided to start possibly hunting and drink IPAs, every day he goes, "I always question where my black friend went." I have to hear it from him all the time. So IPAs, my taste buds changed. I was a PBR. I grew up drinking 40 ounces of OE. I mean, that tells you something there.
The Colt 40s and stuff.
Yeah, tipping them back. But something changed as I got a little older. You start liking certain vegetables now, and and IPAs started to taste good. Me and Kevin drink IPAs together. Matter of fact, at that very place I was at, that used to be our thing, where we tip back some fresh squeeze and good beer. But I couldn't enjoy it.
You know what this means. You know what this means, Brian? You're growing up. No,
exactly.
Hell no. We never grow up.
I don't live in a box anymore.
I got a commercial beer fridge in my basement loaded with fine Belgian beers. You need to come to the dark side with me. BelgianStyleAles.com. There's a free commercial for them. BelgianStyleAles.com. Get yourself some real beer made by people who've been making beer for centuries.
Don't sleep on me just yet. Me and he's like a brother to me. We drink beer together, and we toggle between the IPAs and the stout. And then you mix them at the end. I mean, it's a weird deal, but oh yeah, try it. Give it a shot.
I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. Okay, Murph. The rest of this time is yours. This is heresy. Well, this is a violation against the laws of man. Oh my God.
Here's the other thing you need to know about Morgan, Brian, and that is he wears Tommy Bahama. Now, do I need to say more?
No, you do not.
Explains it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Talk about bougie.
Everything I own is pretty much Tommy Bahama. Yeah, that's right, man. I can do it, but I still got all my hair.
You know what? I give you respect for that.
Yeah. Right, I got the cable hair. Hey, anyway, so let's get to the serious part now, though. So you're just putting a IPA to your lips. Thankfully, it didn't touch it. But what went off? A pager, an alert? You get a message, a call? What happened?
We, I wish we had the pay. I missed the pagers, but no, we all went to our cell phones, and so you got a command or a team text alert that. Obviously, for the last week or two, we've been looking for this dude. I had prior knowledge where we had done some investigations. I had been searching on the gang side for him. Multiple people had been seeing him. Off-duty officers noticing him in the vehicle that he carjacked at gunpoint. And so chase was on. Patrol does an awesome job locking him down into a neighborhood of about 9 houses, older neighborhood, after a pursuit. And so we get the text. I'm on the other side of the world. So I live from the center of Boise. I live about 20 miles away. And so I'm on the, downtown side. So I'm about, and it's traffic and things like that. So I have to hustle to get to a city just outside of Boise to go get all my stuff, my vehicle, everything. So I was going to more than likely be the last one there. So I get on the bike, I boogie it to the house, get kitted up, get on the radio, figure out where our, tactical command is going to be. And I land there. Team has already gone forward to start now with a hasty plan of a yard-to-yard search of those 9 houses, clockwise position, based on last known location for him.
Real quick, let's stop there for a second and ask you. So, because I think Kevin mentioned this too, you guys didn't have any take-home vehicles, right? A SWAT, you all had to go somewhere. I mean, you might have your kit and stuff, get all jocked up, but you had to go somewhere to get a vehicle, or did you take a POV or something else to the scene?
Yeah, that was an unfortunate part about our team is a lot of good equipment, and you were kind of stuck in putting it in your POV. I was fortunate, like some of the other guys on the team. I had a take-home detective car, undercover ride. That's where everything was kept for me, secured in my vehicle. So I had to hustle all the way home and then hustle all the way back to that call. And so yeah, I had a detective car. I was kitted up, had my stuff, jumped out the Tactical Operations Command, got my rifle on, strapped my helmet on, got ready to go, and waited with my sergeant, who's one of the best sergeants we had, Sergeant Rogers, and the lieutenant, and asked him what he wanted me to do. And he said, I want you to go stack up with the team. They had just finished the initial house or yard where the suspect had landed, and they were going to a secondary house. It was a counterclockwise search, going to a house just to the south of it. And that's where I picked up and got at the back of the stack.
Tell everybody real quick, you mentioned it's a term of art, we kind of understand it, but when you said you stacked up with the team, let people know from like a SWAT standpoint, when you stacked up and you're doing this, kind of describe people if they were looking at it, what they would be seeing.
So you got a line of guys, obviously in tactical gear, picking up areas of responsibilities, literally in a line, sometimes another line next to it. So we call it double stack, depending on the configuration. You have positions interwoven in that. So you have a team leader that's directing directions of travel. You have a canine that's interwoven in that, and you have canine cover. You have breachers interwoven in that. So if we approach a door or something that needs to be breached, then those people will go forward with cover, breach, and then you got your points who are kind of leading the snake, to kind of cover this area and get it adequately searched with the help of a canine to see if we can find the suspect.
Hey players, that is the end of part 1. Part 2 comes out, as always, on Tuesday. In the meantime, go check us out at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. Also, go check out our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. We've got a lot more information there, including our book list. Any book written by our guests will be listed there. In the meantime, go check us out also, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. It's where we put a lot more content you won't hear on our regular podcast. We go into a lot more topics, and folks, it is a lot of fun. So go check us out, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. In the meantime, everybody stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow for part 2.